Is there anything better than daytime college basketball? There's nothing. There's nothing. And Feast Week gets started with a bang, and we are here to recap a little bit and preview the night ahead on Big East Shootaround live from New York City. John Fanta here with you, and Villanova getting things started off with a commanding 98-69 win. Cole Swider with a career performance. What stands out about this win for the Wildcats? Well, in a sense, a get-right game. They beat Ohio over the weekend. They come off that, and they just keep churning out great offense. 27 assists on 38 field goals. 7 different Cats hit a three. And here's what stands out to me about this win. Cole Swider goes for the career high. But that's a product of the way Villanova plays. Not only can Swider do that, Sadiq Bey could do that on any given day. Jermaine Samuels could do that. What we saw today was a sophomore have a coming-out party. Villanova has several of those players. And Colin Gillespie, he's what you want in a point guard. 7 assists today. He's starting the game on an 8-0 run. The Cats roll, and they are on to the semifinals in the Myrtle Invitational, awaiting the winner of Mississippi State and Tulane. That'll be tomorrow afternoon. Much more to come. As Feast Week has arrived, we've got Xavier's Paul Scruggs coming on, the junior guard, Musketeers in action tonight, and NBC sports writer Rob Doster. But first, a major headline. The Big East boasts the National Player of the Week, and that comes in the form of Seton Hall's MYLES POWELL, averaging over 30 points per game last week for the Hall. Even in a 1-1 week, he proved that the Pirates belong as a Final Four contender in the narrow 3-point loss to Michigan State. To think that Powell was supposedly going to have a prolonged absence, and then 5 days later was playing against one of the nation's best, the preseason #1 team, and then goes off the way he did with the national spotlight on him? Seton Hall fans, this is something to relish, and we'll talk about in a little bit. But for one, Powell, the USBWA Player of the Week, it says a lot, even in a week where the Pirates lost a game. Time for some Big East headlines. 3 unbeatens in the conference. The league is now 34-7 on the early season with 2 more teams in action tonight. And you've got Xavier, Butler, and DePaul as the unbeatens. For these Xavier Musketeers, they're rooted in defense. Junior guard Paul Scruggs will be coming up on the show. But the Musketeers through 4 games have only allowed 58.5 points a contest. Now, they haven't been able to average more than 70 points per game, and that has to do with them only going 21% from 3. But you know what I think when I see 21% from 3? You think it's got to get better. And if it's going to get better, Najee Marshall's the force behind it, as well as Scruggs. And for Xavier, they've been battle-tested. They beat a Missouri team that expects to compete in the SEC. And for Travis Steele's group, they were able to win over a Missouri State team picked at the top of the valley. Meanwhile, let's turn to the Butler Bulldogs. The Dogs look improved. Why? Because they've got physicality in the form of Bryce Enzi. He's averaging in double figures for points, and he's got 8 rebounds a game. Aaron Thompson and Kamar Baldwin combine the backcourt. There you see Enzi laying it up and in. Impact transfer for Laval Jordan coming over from Milwaukee, and he gives a Bulldogs team an edge. This team last year was in the negative when it came to rebounding margin. What stands out to me the most, Saturday, their win over Wofford, that's 4 straight games where they've committed single-digit turnovers. The Dogs have been mistake-free. 19 assists to just 8 turnovers against Wofford. Aaron Thompson coming up with 7 dishes. To me, Thompson complimenting Baldwin, and for Thompson to create that ball movement is huge for the Dogs' ceiling. Finally, the DePaul Blue Demons. There's reason to be excited in Chicago because DePaul has Big East caliber talent that goes 7 or 8 deep. You've got Paul Reed, who has delivered at a high level, averaging a double-double per game. But what stands out to me the most is this team's connected. I looked last week, and DePaul 5-0 for the first time since 1986. But just looking and researching this Blue Demon squad, Romeo Weems said after the Cornell win that Charlie Moore and him connected right off the bat during the summer. Weems, the freshman forward, he's a 4-star recruit. Then you've got Moore coming over from Kansas. That just says talent. And Weems and Moore, they're roommates together. Romeo talked about how much of a bond they share and just how much they want to be a part of DePaul's turnaround. Here's a conclusion through 2 weeks, and Rob Doster from NBC is going to hit on it. The DePaul Blue Demons can no longer be looked at as a doormat. Rather, they're knocking at the door. Big spotlight tonight for the Georgetown Hoyas, and it comes where Patrick Ewing's all too familiar with, Madison Square Garden. Georgetown will take on number 22 Texas in their 2K Classic opener. The winner potentially could get Duke on Friday night. Dynamic point guard matchup tonight between Georgetown's James Akinjo, the reigning Big East Freshman of the Year, and Texas's Matthew Coleman. But most importantly for Patrick Ewing, he always loves doing a little bit of home cooking at the Garden.
I talk to you about this often. How much do you think a trip inside your home, Madison Square Garden, could help your team here?
Well, it's gonna be good to be back home. You know, I played 15 years there, and not counting college. Hopefully my guys, I know they'll be prepped and ready to go compete on the big stage.
What kind of vibe do you get when you walk inside the world's most famous arena?
Man, it's just an amazing feeling. Can't even put it into words. Just being able to play on that big of a stage in front of everybody is just a blessing.
Does it ever hit you, that number 33 hanging up in the rafters?
Yeah, it's crazy because, you know, he's my coach, so.
It's crazy because he's my coach. How many players can say that with the name hanging up in the rafters? 33 Ewing, you'll see that tonight, Georgetown, Texas, 7 Eastern time on ESPN2. Final Big East headline goes with Seton Hall. They're living up to their high billing. Preseason number 12, now number 13 in the AP poll, and the Big East favorite. Last week, they showed they're for real. Because you take on a Michigan State team that's led by an All-American in Cassius Winston and that found some shooting from other sources that maybe you don't plan on if you're Seton Hall and the scout, and yet the Pirates answer time and again. The rim protection is off the charts. You've got 2 7-footers, one of 9 teams in America, by the way, with 2 7-footers. And you have a game-changing, program-changing player in number 13 in MYLES Powell. You combine the rim protection defensively with the scoring of Powell. If Seton Hall gets complimentary scoring, they've got the atmosphere. Fans, relish this because you don't know when you're going to have another player like this. And that's not a discredit to what Seton Hall has coming in and to the future of the program, but MYLES Powell is doing something that seems historic. Don't believe me? Just listen to what a Hall of Famer has to say.
Their kid MYLES is one of the great players I've ever seen in college basketball. He seems to play hard. He seems to have fun. He seemed like a great kid. Didn't talk a lot of crap. He just did it the right way, and my hat off to him.
Tom Izzo has watched a lot of great players. That says it all. You think about all the different players that he's coached against. Maybe that's why I wore the green today. It wasn't coincidental. No, I literally just looked in my closet and this was what was on the edge. Have some dry cleaning to do ahead of Feast Week. Speaking of Feast Week, Paul Scruggs of Xavier, the junior guard. Musketeers missed the NCAA tournament last year. That is not common for them because they're seeking their 13th appearance in the Big Dance on the last 15 years. Defensively, they've got it down. And Marshall has led them in scoring this year, as well as Scruggs. And then Tyreek Jones, the senior big man, gives them that physical presence. But for the Musketeers, this weekend in Charleston, we're going to find out if they can, 1, find their offensive rhythm, and 2, just how for real they are, because they could potentially meet UConn tomorrow and Florida later this weekend. Well, speaking of Paul Scruggs, we caught up with him earlier this week and hit on why Xavier has pride defensively and who they want to be in the Big East. The 18th-ranked Xavier Musketeers are off to a 4-0 start, and we're joined by the junior standout for Xavier. It's Paul Scruggs, as Musketeers are getting ready for the Charleston Classic this upcoming weekend. Paul, this 4-0 start has been ruled by the defense for you guys. What's been the key on that end of the floor?
Really, it's just us having a motor on the defensive end. Everybody just trusting each other to be in their spots and just going hard.
How much do you feel like there's a different level of trust this season as opposed to last year?
Really, it started in Spain when we got to spend time with a lot of time with each other like that, and it just grew throughout the year, and it's going to continue to grow.
When people think about the Xavier Musketeers, they think defense, toughness, that gutsy factor that's part of the identity, Paul.
Right.
How does that happen?
It's really just the players, us as a team, just buying into our defense, going hard in every rep, lasting for 30 seconds on defense, and just being there for each other.
And you welcome in a top-tier recruiting class.
Yeah.
This program, and I know that Kiki Tandy's still working his way back from injury, but for some of these freshmen coming in, you're now a junior, Paul. How have you tried to help these guys embrace the system?
Really just trying to coach them up the best way I can in practice and lead by example, whether that be on game day or I just show them how to do things.
What are the kinds of expectations that you and the other leaders of this group try to lay out to the rest of the team in the locker room?
We want to be the nastiest, toughest team in the Big East, and that's what we want everybody to look at us as, and that's why we come out how we come out every game.
Travis Steele, in his second season, how have you seen him grow into this role as the head coach of this program?
Last year you can tell he wasn't really comfortable with the role, but I feel like this year he has embraced it a lot more than he did last year, and he's taken a lot more time with us, showing us a lot more film, actually talking us through things, getting us prepared for games and stuff like that.
How cool is it for you to see him continually grow and now really take this program forward and potentially lead you guys back to the NCAA tournament this season?
It's really cool. I mean, it just makes me want to play for him that much more, just to know where he came from and things like that, and the progression that he made. And so, yeah, it makes me happy for him.
Najee Marshall, leading this team as well this season, the top of the scoring column for this Xavier group. What makes him such a special player?
Man, that dude's motor is ridiculous. And I mean, he can get you a bucket like that and also get you a defensive stop. That's why I like playing with him.
I know that there's been an earn in the past. There's been other things that Xavier teams have done to serve as motivation. Anything in the locker room or something that you guys do?
Just having that connection on and off the court. We like to play for one another, and we treat one another as family. And so I feel like that plays a big role in our success.
Last year, it was the energy bus, right?
Yeah.
Is the energy bus still motoring along?
Yeah, the energy bus is still here. We just ain't got our Dougie yet.
You ain't got your what?
Our Dougie was our manager from last year, and he the one that made the little energy bus thing, the one that wore the cap and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure Dante Jackson will probably take over that role or something.
Dante Jackson's got it down. Let's look at your game here. How would you assess where you're at and where you're trying to go this season?
Really where I'm at right now, I'm happy with where I'm at, but I want to get better, obviously. And so with doing that, I just have to be in the gym more and, getting up more shots.
Those are the things that people don't see, Paul. They watch you on TV. They see all your big games and whatnot. But when you say there's room for me to get better, when you're in the gym late at night and nobody's watching, give us a glimpse of what exactly you're working on.
Really is my post work, my footwork, shooting off the dribble, 1-2 pull up, just things like that.
Let's look at the rest of the Big East. What do you see in this conference this season? And have you been able to watch anybody thus far?
I haven't, but I know this is going to be a pretty big conference to be in this year. We're going to have a lot of tough games because every team in the Big East is great. There's no team that's not good. So every game I feel in the Big East is going to be a great game.
Every game in the Big East is going to be a great game. I'm going to tell you right now, get your calendar out because December 30th, just mark it down right now. FS1, big-time game inside the pavilion. It is Xavier and Villanova. Philly's going to be rocking. Musketeers, Wildcats, they get it started. And I think that has the potential to be a top 15, if not better, showdown. What a way to start off conference play with two of the heavyweights since this league reconfigured. Xavier in action at 7 Eastern time on ESPNU, and thanks to Paul Scruggs for the times. Musketeers, they'll take on Towson in the Charleston Classic opener. The winner of that one gets either UConn or Buffalo. As we look around Feast Week here, busy weekend ahead. I've got my eyes on St. John's in the Hall of Fame tip-off. Julian Champagny has impressed me. Season-high 14 points last night against Columbia, 7 rebounds and 2 steals as well. Mike Anderson said he could be an X-factor, and he is one right now. Johnny's take on Arizona State Saturday afternoon. That's a big opportunity for them to move the early needle at Mohegan Sun. They could get Virginia on Sunday. St. John's has a chance to prove something this weekend, and just a big night for Georgetown, folks. I can't overstate how much they need a good showing against Texas inside Madison Square Garden. The Hoyas are 3-1, but they haven't put that complete 40 minutes together yet. We'll see if that happens here tonight. So across the Big East, lots of storylines, just 7 losses combined for the league, but we're going to find out a lot about this conference in the next 10 days. What if we found out in the first 2 weeks, though? I brought in NBC sports writer Rob Doster to hit on all the Big East hoop storylines. Great to break down the first 2 weeks of college basketball season with NBC sports writer Rob Doster. Rob, you were at the Seton Hall Michigan State Marquee Showdown last week. Cassius Winston and Myles Powell going punch for punch. And for Seton Hall, even in a loss, how much do you think this was a validation of their high expectations?
Well, it kind of proved to me that what they built and how they built this roster will work. You know, it's more or less a team that's going to win games because they can really defend and because they have Myles Powell, who, when he goes for 37 points, Seton Hall can play with anybody in the country. But the other key to me was they got big contributions from guys like Miles Cale and guys like Romero Gill. And to me, that's going to be the difference in this team. You know, if they want to be a good Big East basketball team, they already are. You know, you don't have to worry about it. When you have Myles Powell and you can defend the way that they can defend, you're going to be fine. But if they want to be a team that we're talking about as a legitimate Big East title contender or as a team that can make it to a Final Four, you can't just rely on having one guy go for 30 on a night anytime you play a good basketball team. So I think we're going to get a really good sense of just how good this team actually is and what their ceiling is when they head to the battle for Atlantis. Obviously, they get Oregon in the first game. They could end up playing Gonzaga, and if all goes right for them, you can see them play North Carolina as well. They still get Iowa State, and I believe they had to make a trip down to Piscataway to play Rutgers before their non-conference season is over. So we're really going to get a feel for what this team is before Big East play starts. And I hope that it turns out that they are legitimately a Final Four contender, and guys like Miles Cale, the rest of that supporting cast can really step forward the way that we want to see him step forward.
Let's turn to the rest of the Big East Conference. 3 teams are unbeaten out of the 10. Xavier, they're at 4-0 in the top 20 in the nation. What have they shown you through the first couple weeks?
That they can win games ugly. You know, I think we kind of knew that about them, though. You know, I'm more impressed with that Missouri win that they got than probably other people are, because I think Missouri is going to end up being somewhere around a top 25 team by the end of the season. You know, they're really, really tough. They have a couple of really good guards in Mark Smith and Drew Smith, and they figured out a way to use Jeremiah Tillman as kind of a defensive presence and a defensive 5, and it's working for them. You know, I think that that's going to look better. That win is going to age really well. But Xavier, you know, the long term, they need 2 things to happen. One, Quentin Gooden's got to play better. He has not been good through the first 4 games of the season. That's a problem for them. The other part of it is they got to make a shot. You know, this is a team that's shooting, I think it's 20% from 3 now through 4 games. You know, that's just not going to be good enough. And it makes me wonder if we really are going to see Xavier move forward, or if what we saw in the last 7 games of last season when they got hot and when they made that run towards the end of the regular season, if that was just them shooting really, really well for a 7-game streak, for a month-long streak during the season, or if that is actually who they are. And I think it'll help when they get Kiki Tandy back, because I think he's the best shooter in the program. But the bottom line is, if you're not making shots, and I know that this is, there's no science behind this, there's no data behind this, it's all anecdotal, but I swear, in the 2 games that I've watched Xavier play, they've missed 384 wide-open 3-pointers, and that's just not going to get it done.
The DePaul Blue Demons are off to a 5-0 start, their best since 1986, and we have a lot of followers wondering, are they legit?
I think that they might be. You know, I don't know if they're going to end up being a team that competes at the top of the Big East. I don't know if they're going to end up being a tournament team, but I certainly think that this is the best team that we've seen at DePaul in, I don't even know how long. You know, Paul Reed is one of the best big men of the conference. I think that getting Charlie Moore eligible and having a guy that can get you 14-4 on the perimeter certainly does matter. I think that Dave Lato has been able to bring talent into the program. I mean, to put it frankly, they got dudes, and I think that's the easiest way that you can say it with DePaul this year. And they don't always have that level of talent. And not only do they have some of these big name guys and guys that can go out and win you a game on their own, there's a little bit of depth on their roster as well. So I do think that they're legit. I think that they're going to be around for a while, and I think that we're looking at a situation. I said that my bold prediction heading into the season was that DePaul would finish no higher than 9th in the Big East, and I'm kind of regretting that. And you know, we're only 2 weeks into the season, so that should tell you just about how good they've been thus far.
They could be a dark horse candidate, that's for sure, in the Big East. Anybody else that through 2 weeks in the season intrigues you? Maybe they haven't fully blossomed yet, but you see some room for them to reach a high ceiling.
I've been impressed with Butler. I think that they're better than I thought they were going to be. You know, it really comes down to, is Kamar Baldwin going to be healthy? And when he's healthy, he could do things like score 27 points against Minnesota. I think that their wings, obviously Sean McDermott has been shooting the ball really well. I think Bryce Enzi, I don't know if I pronounced that name right, Bryce, I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but his addition has given them a little bit of fortitude in the paint. To me, the X factor with that group is going to be Jordan Tucker. And, you know, I want him to be a secondary source of offense. I want him to be a guy that you can expect on, you know, every other night maybe to go out and get you 20 points. I want him to be a threat that opposing defenses are worried about. And, you know, I'm not convinced that he is going to be that guy. And maybe it just, you know, I saw him have a couple of great games on the AAU circuit, and maybe I can't get that out of my mind. Maybe I'm just hung up on this idea that, oh, he went to Duke, he must end up being a really good player at some point. So we'll see if that ends up panning out. But to me, Jordan Tucker is the X factor that takes Butler from being a team that, you know, we're saying better than we thought they would be, to being kind of in that top 25 NCAA tournament.
Thanks to Rob Dauster from NBC Sports for joining us. You can follow him at Rob, D-A-U-S-T-E-R, on Twitter. Rob Dauster on Twitter. Head to NBCSports.com. Their college basketball talk on NBC. It flies under the radar, in my opinion. I think it's worth your time. Well, tonight I'm off to the Garden. We will have some coverage as Georgetown takes on number 22 Texas, 7 Eastern Time, ESPN2. The other Big East team in action, Xavier taking on Towson and Charleston, also at 7. That is on ESPNU. The Deuce, the U, full night of action ahead. And next week we're on at a special time, special day. It's Tuesday. We're still on at 3 Eastern, of course, but Tuesday, that's right. On Thanksgiving, we eat with our families and friends, so we'll come on Tuesday, 2 days earlier. And you all remember, on Halloween, we broke out the candy bowl. Well, that was so loved that we're going to head to the Thanksgiving table. And we're going to incorporate the world of Big East hoops into it. Plus, I really like Thanksgiving side dishes. And so if you wanted a tease, this is it. You're just going to have to wait until Tuesday at 3 Eastern Time. We're moved up in the schedule, and it's a full feast week. Big East teams in action all over the place. We'll break all that down, maybe have some interviews, and we'll make you hungry as well. That does it for us. Off to the Garden tonight. If you're at MSG, come say hi and enjoy your weekend here, as all these big tournaments are in full force now. Villanova getting it started with a win. 2 more in action tonight, and a big buffet on deck. See you Tuesday at 3 on Shootaround.